Greetings from Ben Thinkin, and welcome to the BB Max Show. Brenda and I have a lot to say about many things, but Brenda also works full-time and can't always be here. When that happens, it'll be me, myself, and I going by the name of Ben Thinkin. So today I'm going to go on a little deeper dive on some of the things that Brenda and I have talked about in the past. And we'll start with the Age of Enlightenment. And in that time, this is about 150 years before the American Revolution, roughly that time, philosophers and scientists were challenging forms of religious intolerance and royal absolutism and restrictions on information. And they argued that human progress depended on freedom of thought and open discussion. Freedom of thought and open discussion, very important. These ideas were swirling around Europe, and a large part of the ability of them to do that was the printing press. That was a huge invention for that, very helpful. But all they could do was talk about these things. They really couldn't do anything. They just didn't have the ability to do anything. Now, these ideas were based on natural law, which is our conscience, the interior space in which we can listen to and hear the truth, the good, the voice of God. Whether you believe in God or not, you know that your conscience is there. You know that you know what's right and what's wrong. It doesn't need to be written. You know what's right and wrong. We need to pay more attention to that nowadays. But again, these people weren't able to do anything until the American Revolution. We were isolated over here, and we were just able to do more about it, which we ended up doing. And as George Washington put it in his first inaugural address, the preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government are justly considered as being staked on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. The experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. And that's what it was. It was an experiment. And it's worked out very well. We need to do our part, but it's worked out very well. Now, we have in here the Declaration of Independence, very important part of one of those principles that I mentioned. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The consent of the governed, that's very important. That was one of the things that had never been done before. It was always the king was king. That's what I want to do, that's what I'm doing. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work very well that way. But that's what we did. And this is the Declaration and the Constitution in the one little booklet there. People should read that more often. It's not all that long, not all that big. Some of the words are little because it's old in the dialogue they used back then, but it's very important to read it. So people should do that. Now, our revolution inspired the French to have a revolution of their own. They had a king at the time, and he wasn't very popular. They managed to get rid of him. And they had their Declaration of the Rights of Man was sort of based on the Declaration of Independence. And it says Declaration of the Rights of Man, and all men are created equal. Should be all people are created equal, but that's another subject for another day. There is a book about that subject, Headstrong, 52 Women Who Changed Science and the World by Rachel Swaby. A book about 52 women that unfortunately, women at that time didn't get credit for things they did. Wrong, but that's the name of the book, is Headstrong, 52 Women Who Changed Science and the World by Rachel Swaby. That's a subject for another day. Brenda and I will talk about that at some point in time. But getting back to the French Revolution, they succeeded in overthrowing the king, but then the people who were in charge, who had run the revolution, the love of control and power got to them, overcame their conscience, and they ended up having what became known as the Reign of Terror. 17,000 people were executed because they were declared enemies of the state. It just didn't work out very well for them, unfortunately. They tried several forms of government there, and they ended up with Napoleon. That didn't work out very well either. But they were trying. They were emulating what we were doing. They were watching what we were doing, and they were very happy with what we had done, except for one thing, and that was slavery. They weren't happy about slavery at all. It had been abolished in France, and they were saying, what are you guys doing, still allowing slavery? So they were very happy when we were able to finally abolish slavery. And that inspired them to give us the Statue of Liberty. And the people of France paid for that. Not the government of France, the people of France paid for that. And the actual name of the statue is Liberty Enlightening the World. Liberty Enlightening the World. That'd be awesome. I know we can do that. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. That was the actual name of the statue. And they have at the base of the statue, you can't see it in the poster that I have there, but on the base of the statue, right in there, there's a broken chain and shackles symbolizing the abolishment of slavery. Very important. Also have the Declaration of Independence in hand that it says July 4th, 1776, not the actual declaration written out, but that's symbolizing that. That was very important for them. And the French were hoping that we could lead by example. And we ended up becoming the land of opportunity. People loved coming here because they could get out of the rut or so that they were stuck in Europe. In Europe, whatever class you were born in, you stayed in that class. You couldn't rise above anything. You were just stuck there. And over in America, you had the opportunity to become whoever you wanted to become. Hard work, yes, but you could do it. And that's why we became the land of opportunity. Now, the statue was built in France, and they took it apart, sent it to America, and we paid for this pedestal. The people of America paid for the pedestal to put it on. So the people of France had built it in France to make sure everything fit right. Then they took it apart, sent it over here, and it was dedicated on October 28th, 1886 in the afternoon. The morning of that day, they had a parade through the streets of New York, and they were winding through all the streets. They went by the Wall Street offices there and the buildings there, and the top floors of the building. People up there were all excited and everything. They started grabbing ticker tape, throwing it out the window. Thus, the first ticker tape parade was on the dedication day for the Statue of Liberty. That was pretty cool. And there are replicas throughout the world. This is how important people, they really love the Statue of Liberty, the idea of liberty enlightening the world. That's what people want. And the people of Vietnam, over in Vietnam, after World War II, they had been, before the war, they were a colony of France. And during the war, Japan kicked the French out. After the war, the Japanese were kicked out, and the French wanted to come back in. But the people of Vietnam didn't want that. They had their own Declaration of Independence based on our Declaration of Independence. And they asked the United States to side with them. Unfortunately, we didn't. We sided with France. That was a hard decision. We just went through World War II with French as our allies. Hard decision, but we ended up not agreeing with the Vietnamese, and their leader at the time was very upset about that. And he said, "It's a Statue of Liberty standing on her head? This is crazy, you guys." And he was very, very upset about that, reasonably so. Difficult situation, but you can't go back and change things, so it's all you can do. Now, nowadays, there are far too many people in this country saying we're a terrible country, we're racist, we're horrible, it's just oppressive and all that stuff there. I don't think so. The principles we started out on are very solid, and that's what we need to work on. We're not perfect, no, we need to work on those, but we can do it. And I think people have thought that for a long time. You have the Tuskegee Airmen. In World War II, these are black pilots that had to fight to get into the Air Force. There was discrimination, segregation at that time. They had to fight to get into the Air Force. And they became fighter pilots. There was a squadron called the Tuskegee Airmen. And they ended up going over to Italy, and the bombers that they escorted for their bombing missions, and it's sad what people do all the time to each other, but the bombers that they escorted were all white crews. No blacks on those crews at all. Yet these guys, these black airmen, put their lives on the line to protect these guys. And not one American bomber was shot down by German fighters when the Tuskegee Airmen were guarding them. Not one. And then you have the Navajo, the code talkers. They were discriminated against. Indians, American Indians, they were herded onto reservations and all that. Terrible what had been done to them. But what did they do? They volunteered for, I believe it was in the Marine Corps, the Navajo code talkers. They would transmit messages for the Marines in Navajo. Japanese couldn't understand that, so that was very successful, worked very well. But they had done it because they believed in the principles that our country was based on. I think. This is just two examples of how wonderful people know. We know this country is wonderful. And with the 250th birthday coming up, we should be dancing in the streets, celebrating all the good things that we have, all the good things that we've done, the things that we can do when we work together. It's amazing. And we really should be celebrating that instead of letting bitterness and rancor and divisiveness get us bashing each other. Now, there's an organization I've spoken about before, Braver Angels. If you follow politics, you know blue is for liberals, red is for conservatives. Instead of bashing each other, we need to work together. We've done it before, we can do it again. A perfect example of doing it before, when we've done it before, was the Constitutional Convention of 1787 in Philadelphia. After the Revolution, the Founding Fathers determined that the Articles of Confederation weren't strong enough to hold us together as a country. So they held a Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1787, summer of 1787 in Philadelphia at Independence Hall. And they kept all the windows shut because they didn't want people listening in on what they were talking about. All the windows were shut in the summer of 1787. Hot. It was heated. You know, roasting in there. Well, I don't know roasting, but warm. And yet they did it. They had some heated discussions. It wasn't liberals versus conservatives. It was more of a large population states versus small population states, basically. But they got together and got it done. They talked it out. They hashed it out. They a little give and take on each side, and they worked it out. They did it. We can do that again. Just need to do it. You need to pay attention to your conscience. Consult your conscience and live by the golden rule. Two big, huge things. Small steps for a person, huge steps for humanity, I would say. Now, unfortunately, today you get people on each side thinking it's total victory or total defeat. You have people on one side will say, I'll give you 5 good reasons why you should change your mind and agree with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are 5 good reasons. The other guy says, yeah, I'll give you 5 good reasons why you should change your mind and agree with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are 5 very good reasons. What happens then? That's all they do. It's bash, bash, bash. Fighting, fighting, fighting. Doesn't get us anywhere. And each side thinks, well, if I keep fighting long enough, keep fighting hard enough, I'll eventually win. No, that's not going to happen. That's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing and thinking the results are going to change. That's not going to happen. We need to work together. When we work together, we can get things done. Much more fun, isn't it? Would you rather go to a party where everybody's going rah, 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 or having fun? You know? So we need to defeat our common enemies: rancor, bitterness, divisiveness, and the love of money, power, and control. Right now, they're winning. They're clobbering us. We need to stop that, and we can do that when we listen to each other and when we work together. Give a little give and take here. You can't have everything. Got to give and take, compromise. Now, we can do this, and we can do this. The key word there is we. And everybody knows we have a problem. Everybody seems to think, well, anybody can do anything about it. But when anybody and everybody sit around waiting for somebody to do something, you know who that somebody is? Nobody. And that's not good. We're not going to get anything done when you do it that way. That's not good. So we need to consult our conscience and live by the golden rule. We've had the power all along to do this. We do. We just kind of say, oh, I don't want to get involved. Nothing I can do. There is something you can do. Drop those automatic negative thoughts. Nothing I can do. There is. Get involved and work together to get the job done. I have a quote here. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Very, very true. Very inspiring quote. And there's another one I have. Always remember that you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars and change the world. We can do that. That was from Harriet Tubman. Imagine what she went through. What she went through. She was born a slave. She escaped slavery. She went back many, many times to help other people escape. She put her life in danger going back to help other people because she believed in it. That's what we need to do. Now, getting back to liberty enlightening the world, that's what we can do that. And the people of France and people of the world look up to us. And we're not getting looked up to as much as we should today. Well, as much as we could, because we're too much of that. So we need to fix that. But getting back to liberty enlightening the world, that'd be awesome if we can do that. I know we can do that. We just have to work together instead of beating each other up. There's a quote here from John F. Kennedy. And he was going to give this as part of a speech that he was going to give in Dallas on the day when he got assassinated. So he never gave the speech. But this is one of the things he was going to say. We in this country, in this generation, are, by destiny rather than by choice, the watchmen on the walls of world freedom. We ask, therefore, that we may be worthy of our power and responsibility, that we may exercise our strength with wisdom and restraint, and that we may achieve in our time and for all time the ancient vision of peace on earth, goodwill toward men. We can do that when we work together. Very important that we do that. Work together. We can do that. I know it sounds kind of crazy today with the way the world is, but that's what we have to do. Consult your conscience. Really pay attention to your conscience. Live by the golden rule. And random acts of kindness, do that. The happier people are, the better off everyone is. When happy people, instead of rah, 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 happy people are better people. Then I'll close with a quote then. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. What you can do for your country is consult your conscience, live by the golden rule, and get working together so we can solve the problems that we face today. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. Shalom.